Hi, welcome to this short video that shows how to set up an EoE, which is Ethernet over EtherCAT connection in TwinCAT, and then how to use it with the Control Techniques drive and the Connect software. So for this demonstration, what we've got is, in this case, a laptop, and the laptop has been loaded with TwinCAT EoE shell, and it's also been loaded with Control Techniques Connect software. So we've got an Ethernet connection from the laptop through to the hardware, which in this case is an IPC, but the steps that you'd follow are identical if it's a controller or PLC from back off. One of the ports have been configured for EtherCAT connectivity, and we've got a cable route all through to the SI EtherCAT module, which is then plugged into this drive, which is Unidrive M700, making it an EtherCAT capable drive. Now, if you've got one of our dedicated servo products, such as Digitat's HD M753, this interface is actually built into the product. However, the steps that you would follow in order to get an EoE connection working would be identical. So, housekeeping, before we get going on this, there's a couple of things that you will need. So firstly, you need to have administrator rights on the PC that hosts Connect and TwinCAT. Otherwise you're not able to actually set up the static routes that you need in order to get the EoE connection to work. You've only got to set this connection up once, but you do need the administrator rights in order to do it. So secondly, it's best to enable a remote desktop on the back-off hardware, which IPC, PLC, controller, whichever you've got, so that if the EoE connection doesn't come up, you can do things like check the registry to make sure that port forwarding is enabled on the device. So before we get into how to do it, I just want to point out that this video and all of the other videos in the series for TwinCAT are backed up by this user guide. So if you prefer to learn from a written set of instructions step by step, or if you simply don't want to take any notes whilst you're watching the video, we've got you covered. So this particular section is covered here, how to set up an EtherCAT EoE connection. Okay, so this document is linked in the description and it's free to anybody to download. So let's begin. So I'm going to start off in the TwinCAT environment and I'm going to go into configure mode. So there we go. So the first thing that you want to check is your device, EtherCAT tab, advanced settings. And in here you need to make sure that on the EoE support tab that these two boxes are ticked. Okay, in my case, I've previously set it up, so I know that these two are set up correctly. I'm going to click OK to that. Second thing, if we expand the network, double click on the drive, EtherCAT, advanced settings. Then what we need to do is mailbox, EoE, enable virtual Ethernet port, IP port, and then set the IP address. So in this case, the IP address that I will be able to get access to this drive via Connect will be 192.168.2.20. Okay, subnet mask is norm1 255.255.255.0, and then the default gateway, this is actually the IP address of the Ethernet port on your hardware. So in my case, my IPC LAN 1 has been configured to have this IP address 192.168.2.199. Now, I deliberately changed mine to 199 as a part of testing something. I think by default, actually, it would be 192.168.2.1 for most back-off hardware. But again, if you remote desktop in, you can find out what your IP address for your particular hardware is. Okay, so we'll select OK on that. And then I'm going to activate the configuration. Okay, so by doing that, all of those settings will be passed into the product, and we can just make sure that our EtherCAT network is operating. I think that's everything. So we can see that our little rotating cog icon there is working. Okay, next thing, we need to set up the static routes to allow EoE to work. Okay, and to do that, you use PowerShell, or you can use command prompt, whichever you prefer. My personal preference is PowerShell, and you can get to that going power in here. You can see the search brings it up. What you want to do is right click and go run as administrator. Now I'll show you what happens if you don't run as administrator, so I'll let that go because it's quite easy to do. So I am going to paste in the root setup, and it says the requested operation requires elevation. Okay, this is basically telling you that you didn't go in as an administrator and therefore it won't allow you to go and set up the root. So I'll close. Same again, run as administrator, say yes, and here we go. So I'm going to paste in this and I'll explain this. So root, this is to add in the static routing. -P makes it permanent. Add, because we're adding a root, we're not taking one away. If you want to take one away, you do root space delete and then specify the first part, this IP address. So we're saying port forward any addresses in the range 192.168.2 and any number within that range. So what 0 means is you could have an address from 1 to 255 and it would function. It opens up all of them. If you explicitly say 20, you will only ever be able to connect to 20, and it's not that helpful. So what I would say is set 0 here and then you'll have the full range of addresses. Okay, next you want to tell it your subnet mask, which is the standard one, 255.255.255.0, and then last of all, a bit like the setup in the EoE mailbox in the TwinCAT environment, you want to tell it the IP address of the Ethernet port on your Beckhoff hardware. So in my case, it was 192.168.1.199. So I'm going to press enter, and there we go, it's done. So I'm just going to do a root print so that you can see that it's been set up. So root print, there we go. And here we can see persistent roots, and here's our persistent root. So we can see that that's worked. Okay, now all we've got to do is do a quick ping and test to make sure that it's working. So I'm going to go ping, and I'm going to go 192.168.2.20 because that's the IP address we gave our drive node. And there you can go. It's pinging nicely. Okay, so we've got good confidence now that everything should be working and we should be able to use Connect. So let's open Connect, and I'm going to use this button. So this is the one that you need, the one that says EoE on the end, and you say scan Ethernet network. And in a minute, hopefully it will find our node. There we go. 192.168.2.20, and what we could do is create a new project with this and then follow all of the normal steps in order to configure our product. Okay, I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching.